I would say the number one complaint on some of the research that I've had recently, and this is huge, you guys, is nobody picks up the phone when they call. If you get one takeaway from this presentation today, it is they want to reach you, but they do not want to wait 6 hours to reach you. They want to reach you now.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Builder365. Thank you so much for tuning in. And it's just me today. I'm flying solo, no co-host. But we do have a very special interview that I can't wait for you to hear. But before we get to the interview, I want to give a special thanks to our partner for this podcast. Builder365 is powered by Open Door for Builders. Easy sales, smooth moves. You can learn more about the work they do to support home builders at opendoor.com/Builder365. Well, back in July, Jeff sat down with Mollie Carmichael for an interview for the Sales and Marketing Leadership Summit, and they had an incredible conversation. Mollie shared some eye-opening insights from Zonda's latest research on what's really going on with home buyers in today's market. The conversation covered everything from understanding who your buyers are to the role that home design plays in buying decisions, and how the shift to online home buying is going to change the real estate market forever. I know you'll enjoy this conversation as much as I did.
Well, it's always a good day when I get to talk to my good friend Mollie Carmichael at Zonda. Zonda has been a great partner with Shore Consulting, and Mollie's been working behind the scenes to be able to talk to not just her customers, as she does all of the time, but also all of you. So, Mollie, I want to hand it over to you to talk a little bit about what you have found in your research, and really appreciate you doing this. I know there's great value in the content that you're going to provide to us today.
Thanks, Jeff. And thanks everyone for joining us. I'm super excited to see all of you next week. And Jeff, I'm excited to see you as well. We're going to go through, as you guys know, we sent out a survey to the whole group that's going to be with us next week. And we're going to talk a little bit about where we're at today and how things are evolving and shifting as it relates to what works, what helps you to sell homes, what are the things we need to focus on. So I'm going to dive right in. And just a little bit about us, and frankly, just what we did for the format of this presentation. A little bit about your consumer. We also just updated a pulse in July to give you some updates on what your consumers are thinking today. And then we're going to talk about you and what you shared with us. And I love this. We're going to end with the 2024 to 25 forecast. That's going to share with the whole group where you think the market's going to go this next year and the year after that. So first, what did we do to prepare for all of this? We sent out a survey. It was a fairly brief survey, 60 questions or so, to new home sales and marketing professionals. I'll show you the sample size of specifically who that was. And then we sent out a national pulse. They had to be homeowners. They had to be in all the markets that you guys are working in. We were very deliberate about incomes and net worth and all that kind of stuff to make sure they really were your customer, to give you back some feedback there. As we dive into the world is changing, I always share this slide when I start out to talk about how much the world is changing. But when we look at just the influence of interest rates in the last 4 years, it's crazy. So affordability, certainly very real. Inflation, very real. All the things, gas prices, very real. So all those things are influencing what's happening today. But the reality is we have seen no reflection of the impact of this kind of change in home prices. That's thanks to a lot of the professionals listening today. But the other part of it too has to do with the fact that there's low supply, lots of pressure on the market. And thank God the market still looks like it remains strong. The second part that we did, again, was this national consumer pulse. We wanted to actually understand what's going on with the consumers today and how did they feel about it. So starting out, the really first big point is today. Now, last year was 52%. I just reran this pulse to double check it. Today, it's 30% believe now is a good time to buy. And all the things we just talked about, interest rates, inflation, and really concern for the market is really where we're seeing some pause in the market. So it's becoming more challenging. So things like the Jeff Shore events and really educating yourself on who the consumer is, where you've got to be on your toes and be better than you've ever been, for sure.
You know, one thing that's interesting to me, Mollie, is that you've got 30% of the market who people say it's a good time to buy. And yet we still have people with unique visits to websites, coming out to communities, it is still there. So you can almost sense that the consumer is a little bit of what do I do now? Because the demand side is strong, the supply side is still relatively light. But I'm torn with this. Is it a good time to buy? I don't know. It just sounds like it's a recipe for a very confused consumer right now.
Well, it's actually a great point going into this next slide because so much of it has to do with it is the right time for some. So when we look at the top demographics throughout the country by region, who's out there, for the buyer who's just getting married or forming family, whatever that means to them, they have children, but they have to move. And for the move down buyer, they have the most discretionary income out there. And of course, that is obviously an opportunity for them too to cash out that big nest egg, put that in the bank, and voila, they've got financial security. So it really just depends on who that buyer is and really what's going on there. We asked them really, what is your biggest concern? And no big surprise, it's interest rates and it's concern for the market. And very few people are concerned for their job. And the stock market, frankly, I can't even explain the stock market. It's still doing great. I asked them again, though, interest rates. What rates do they want? And I will tell you, more and more still want those lower interest rates. And that's where the new home market has really thrived well above and beyond in the resale market, because so many of the builders out there are offering those buy downs. Largely, it was under 5% for quite some time. That's really where they'd like it to be. It's now pushing to 6%. And we're seeing a slowdown to some degree, I think, because of those buy downs going away. And we're definitely seeing a lot of those buy downs going away. And the second part to it is just not as aggressive as they once were. And at 7.2, 7.4% today, that's probably why. We also asked, what's the most important thing to these consumers when they're buying a home? And it is still total price, right? I mean, monthly payment is a very close number too. While they're very cognizant of interest rates, I think at the end of the day, and I can't tell you why this is, I don't know if you've noticed this, Jack, but East to West Coast, any market, it's like the magic monthly payment is like $2,000 to $3,500 a month. So when you translate that with tax rates and interest rates and equity rollover and all that stuff, that seems to be sort of the magic monthly payment. And certainly depending on the product that shifts. Now,
But it does suggest, though, that if you're a practitioner, if you're a sales leader, you got a sales team, the conversation about how high or low the interest rates are is got to be secondary to where the rubber meets the road. What's the size of the check that you're writing every month? I mean, that's the bottom line here.
Well, and Jeff, it's a great point, because I think the one thing with total price that you have to talk to your customers about is, hey, interest rates can come down, but once you mark your price, that's not coming down. Mm-hmm. Right. And so to really focus on price, I think, is wise, and to really be talking about the market. But to some degree, I think that's what makes a customer nervous too, right? Right. And price gets marked. So the other part too is just overall connectivity. I always like to bring this up. We'll have 80 billion connected devices by 2025. The biggest difference in a new home community, I think it's the biggest advantage you have, is just selling state-of-the-art technology, Hi-Fi, Wi-Fi, fiber. Most new home communities are really associated with excellent technology. If it's not there yet, it's going to be there, especially with all the telecommuters out there. It is amazing that anywhere from 8 to 30% of consumers today, coast to coast, are going into the office full time, which, said differently, anywhere from 70 to 92% are now working in some form of a hybrid. These are not COVID numbers. These are not post-COVID numbers. These are current numbers, which is really staggering. And so the world has, to some degree, changed permanently as we look at it today. And they want it all. I mean, whether I am the older, like myself, working or, just starting out, they want it all. They want immediate access and that hi-fi, Wi-Fi, and all the things that go with it. They want it quickly. When we ask consumers, do they really look to the builder website? Would they love to have one website that kind of holds all those new homes in it together? The reason people love websites like Zillow or Realtor really has to do with the fact that it's kind of a one-stop shop. I can get there quickly. For that customer that really wants new home only, that one website, it just makes it easier. So I'm telling you, in both locations, I would say it's super important. And of course, you guys know Livable and New Home Source. We're doing everything we can to make it better and different. And please talk to me later. I'd love to hear any comments or feedback to make it better. Karen Bonder will be here too. The next one is really how would your consumers like to buy their next home? Do they want to do it independently and in person? Do they want to do it online? Do they want to do it with a realtor? And so you'll see here, the number one is really they love to shop for that home independently. And I think so much of the world has shifted to this kind of internal decision making, and really the world has given them the opportunity to make these decisions on their own. But it is really interesting to me that number one was shop independently, reserve online at home. It doesn't mean they don't want to reach out to you. It doesn't mean they're going to not have tons of questions. It doesn't mean that they need you through the whole process. In fact, I would say the number one complaint on some of the research that I've had recently, and this is huge, you guys, is nobody picks up the phone when they call. If you get one takeaway from this presentation today, it is they want to reach you, but they do not want to wait 6 hours to reach you. They want to reach you now. The
I know we're going to be talking more about that, Molly, but that really is huge. And it's particularly important because the perception, and we'll get to this here in just a little bit, is that people don't want to talk on the phone. Nothing could be further from the truth. Not only do they want to talk on the phone, they want to talk right now on the phone.
They like that picture I showed you. They want it all, and they want it immediately. And it's proven that if somebody reaches out to you, if you don't respond to them within 30 minutes, there's a good chance you're going to lose that sale. So that responsiveness is so crucial. Number two is shop for that home independently, follow with a realtor, shop for the home online, follow up with a realtor to buy, and then also shop for my home online and then reserve online, which really was the lowest of them all. The next one really is when they're shopping for a new home, what are sort of the top ways they actually like to look at their homes, right? Is it a virtual tour? Is it in person at a model, and then remote access with an app? Is it in person with a sales center and a salesperson, scheduled hours? Well, you can see number one is they want to do all the research online. That's consistent. It's getting bigger and bigger. Again, it's that kind of reverting in and really becoming much more internal. And then they're going to come out in person or call. The second and third are super close behind. So it's in person at a model, and then remote access, again, the U-Tour concept, or it's in person at a sales center with a salesperson. But that was number three. And again, it doesn't demonstrate that the salesperson isn't as important. It just demonstrates their independence, their need to really see it for themselves, touch, feel. They definitely need to through the process. I can promise you, I constantly get that, but that's where that instant, responsiveness is so crucial. The other thing, what do they need when they're online? What are the most important things they need to help make that decision? The virtual of the interior, and I will tell you, photos first, then followed by the 3D virtual, then the virtual of the exterior home, bird's eye view of the community. I would tell you, this is one thing I want to pause on. When they look at your website and they're looking at your community and there's 3 homes built and it's just dirt, not great. What I would do is show that community what's available. And then I would show a virtual fly through of what that community is going to look done. And that is going to help you sell that community more than you know. It's not expensive to do. It's a very valuable resource to say, here, I want you to see even a fly through of that community. Boy, that can really help you quite a bit. And then other things.
One of the reasons why people like buying used homes is that they already know what they're getting. They see the finished product. It's right in front of their eyes. So we got to figure out how to replicate that right on the new home side.
Well, and not only that though, but just, I've had people say to me, like, I don't want to count to get to my home because they all look the same. There's just something about, the character of a street scene in some of those older neighborhoods. Totally, Jack. So just being able to feel the charm of that community, I think is great. Even throwing even a little bit as the landscape grows, what that's going to feel like. I do think that that's really important. Least important, the ability to select features online. I will tell you that's less important, but price transparency is important. And that's where that becomes a valuable feature that counterbalances number 7. What tools are most helpful? I want to point out that chatbot actually got a 0. Last year, it got 1% as being important. It continues to frustrate people. It continues, people don't love it. Number one was the real estate websites. Again, it's a one-stop shop. It makes it very easy for them. And number two is actually to reach out to a sales associate, and they're absolutely going to do that in person or by phone. And then, of course, to a broker. Drive neighborhoods, they all rival each other. Livable, as you guys know, that is the intent behind Livable. It's to give easy contact, easy resources, easy everything to kind of pull all that together for you. Now let's talk about you. Let's talk about what your responses were. This was kind of fun. So again, we reached out to sales and marketing professionals that are coming to the summit. How many people do you have coming this year, Jeff?
We've got between 700 and 800. I don't know what the total number is, but it's over 700. Yeah.
That is so exciting. So very big sample size. Largely, we had sales managers and sales associates as the sample. You can see that's over 50%. And then also builder marketing is another 16%. And then a variety of folks in the real estate industry, all affiliated with that, is the remaining 32%. So when we asked throughout the country, where were people coming from, you're going to actually see number one is the Southeast. Number two is Texas. Again, very, very big numbers there, but it's also where very much the transaction activity is coming in too. You'll also see numbers coming in from the South Midwest, North Midwest, and of course, Florida, and all the way throughout the country. The most successful tools that consumers actually saw today, or you felt were most successful for you, really was your builder website, then social media, and then realtor websites. And so we can see sort of the contrast to how the customer's looking at this too. They would have picked realtor websites for sure, and then builder websites and some of that. And social media, I think, is important because it's that third party, opinion of what's going on out there. And really what comes down at the bottom is direct mail. And things like New Home Source and Livable were much lower on the scale there. Again, I'd love to hear feedback from all of you, given that rating. How do we actually make that better? How do we make sure we're doing everything you need to be successful? The other part that we looked at was what's the most important factors from your opinion, looking at the top motivations like location, price, home design, some of those things. And you felt number one was location. Can't change that. Price, certainly we can change. We don't want to change that. Number three is home design. And that really is on all of this where we can make the largest impact. And that's number three. So I really agree with a lot of those. I would just tell you home design is probably the most compelling factor here where you can really sell and make a difference. And for your customer, number one is location. Number two is home design. And then number three is price. They know they're paying a premium for new. They know they're looking at new because it has better home design. And the more and more you can accentuate why, I love the phrase used homes versus new homes, but to some degree, it's just better homes and what you guys are doing to make them better. The other thing we did is we had a rating scale. And so we asked people to rate things from a scale of 1 to 4. So you had to pick whether you were for it or against it. So it was a 3 or a 4. It was important or very important. If it was a 1 or a 2 or even a 2.5, I put that in the less or not important. So we asked what the top communication features were for you and for your customers. You said request information online, email, and sales office. I will tell you number one for them is they want a quick, fast answer, and that's the phone, the sales office, then visit the sales office. And texting was important, but usually more people by a long shot were more likely to phone in. And as you guys know, chatbots failed. When we look at top communication features preferred by your customers as it relates to all these different features, you felt it was phone, then text, and then request information online. You're spot on. That's exactly what it is. They want phone access. Texting is important, but requesting that information online really does drop off, and people didn't love it. People didn't trust that the chat live person really was a live person, so that's where those tend to fall off as well. What is your company most known for? This is an interesting one. So builder brand reputation, quality of construction, and customer service. The challenge is with builder brand and reputation versus something like home design, location, price, choice, or price transparency. The challenge I would say to scare back with your builders is is it's really not about the customer. And you really have to look at this and say, how will my brand and how will our reputation resonate with the customer? And while these are very valid points, the builder brand recognition, I will tell you, when we ranked it with the customer, really came in very low in importance. And you will actually see this. This is from your customers. So I moved this into the presentation on purpose. So you said builder brand, quality of construction, customer service. Now, asking that same question to the consumer, they said location number 1, quality of construction number 2, then price, then home design. Builder brand and reputation were the lowest on that scale. So again, it's not that it's not important to you or to your home builder, but I would just say to you, making sure that they understand who you are is about quality construction, home design. We're priced well, all those things. I just wanted to underscore the difference between how your customers perceive that and how you perceive that. When we look at sort of the percentage of first-time visitors that really understand and know who your customer brand is, this is from you. This is what you said. Over 50% of you actually said, it's under 75%. And in fact, less than 75% actually believe your customers know your brand. So that is a huge opportunity, I think, for everybody. Top home buying opportunities for your customers, according to you today, it's for sure most of the world is functioning the way they once were, even pre-COVID. I feel like we all have amnesia. Again, it's all buy in person at 96%. 20% online, and potentially 18% reserving online. That's about right. And that is what I'm hearing out there. It's about a 20% are actually reserving homes online, depending on what builder I talk to. Now, when we look at where you think the future is for this, this is exciting. And this is really a great opportunity as you look through the summit next week and you guys all get together and talk through this, because there is really a paradigm shift here when we go into one, when we look at sort of transferring to reserving online, buying online, embracing the concept of, hey, we want to empower you with all the information you need, including with my advice and my expertise to help you to make the best decision. You're going to increase your sales. You're going to increase your commissions. You're going to increase your success. Your company is going to be more successful. And quite frankly, I think your consumer is going to be happier if you actually give them all of those tools together.
Yeah, I think this really falls under the category of make it easy for people to give you money. And the more that we limit that opportunity, the more we open the door for somebody else to make it easy to give them money.
And I think at the end of the day, when you think about it, and I'll just use Amazon as the logical one, when they make it easy to order coffee and have it delivered on your doorstep, which I did today, by the way, it just made me happy. Like I smiled with that. And so it's another way to just give your customers true customer satisfaction. When we asked the percentage of consumers that you actually felt to actually visit your models in person, it's a huge number, right? So almost 70% are absolutely visiting, and it's a very small percentage that aren't. And for the most part, people want to make all those decisions, and then they're going to want to go do the contextual stuff, the touch and feel stuff, and really make sure they love your homes and they can see and believe and trust in your quality. They're going to do that too. So there's such an important critical role there. When we look at sort of the home offerings, specs versus options, what do they really want? So ready move-in homes, this is really what helps you guys sell homes the fastest, particularly in a low supply environment and where you guys are offering buy downs. All the right things are in place right now for the new home world to be very successful. Just know if supply were to tick up, the resale market is catching on with buy downs. So I'm starting to see a lot of buy downs out there in the resale market. And let's say if pricing were ever to get soft and we saw more supply hitting the market, that could be more problematic. So again, I'm a big fan of segmentation. Have the, the specs, have the packages, have choice. That's going to always get you optimal segmentation. Number 2 is base price with individual options. Still a fan there. I think it's the most critical and most successful at the highest price points, but certainly important to you. And then curated packages. boy, are we seeing that grow. And it is functioning like the ready move in our spec pricing. And why? It's just transparent pricing. I can pick my lot, pick my floor plan, pick my package, and I know within a period of an hour what my price is. I now get to compete with the resale market, which most of you, that's 80% of your competition. Now let's look at what does really work better in your opinion. Again, the transparent pricing with specs, individual options, very similar to what we just talked about, curated packages, or base prices that include upgraded features. So it's kind of the EI concept, right? Really, for most of you, again, that spec pricing helps you sell the most homes. With individual options helps you to sell the most homes. And then number 3 was curated packages. The difference was on this one, you could only pick one. On the prior one, you had to rank them. And so it really does fall out being very, very similar. But for the most part, you're a believer in specs because 1, you can sell them instantly and you can close them instantly, followed by the options program. I, again, would have a segmentation of all 3 based on my research. The number 1 reason you believe you're going to lose a sale to another builder, and this is an interesting one to me, better incentives I think do help, particularly with buy downs because of the interest rate environment we're in. But I'm going to argue that home design really fell in too low here because that is your biggest advantage. I think home design, excellent technology, clean features, the wellness stuff. Oh, there's so many great things that I think you can talk to from a new home perspective, but really understanding what your competition is across the way. And I'll use this one simple example, and I loved this. Dennis with Fulton Homes, they do the clean air, clean water technology. And, he tells the sales team all the time, just say, hey, if, you don't care if your child is ingesting, more polluted air or water, then you should buy from the guy across the street. Let me care about the health of your husband or your kids or whatever. Maybe you should consider buying from us. That's one simple example. And I'm sure there's 1,000 of them in the way that you guys are designing your homes. But coming up with those features that really set you apart, I hope you have them because I think that's how you really sell homes at an optimal price.
There's a paradigm shift here that needs to happen when we're ranking the perception that home design is as relatively unimportant as other things. For a sales professional, they're going to find that they're just out of touch with what really matters to the customer. I think that scares me more than anything else.
I hate to say this, but it's usually that salesperson who also doesn't know their competition. And so, yeah, and I would really just say the more and more you know your competition and why you're better, that's how you're going to sell more homes at the most optimal price. And then I would say this too, being a researcher and being the person on the builder side who worked on product design, and I still work with so many builders throughout the country on product design. If you aren't better, get that to management, tell them, and make sure that you have compelling reasons why. Because if you don't, then it really should just be a price play. And then you are selling price. The next one is top challenges on buying online. Without a doubt, processes have not caught up. I know everybody's trying to move there quickly. The bigger the company, the harder it is to move. The process is too complicated. I would tell you, we've made it too complicated. And that needs to be simplified. And that's where things like curated packages, specs, all those things, whenever you can simplify the process, you're going to win. And I think all of you know that based on some of the responses I've seen. And then making sure that you're visual, not just with the interior of your home, the exterior of your home, the fly through of the neighborhood. The more they can visually see it. I love what you said, Jeff. In a resale neighborhood, they know what they're getting. They know what the home looks like. They know what the neighborhood looks like. We need to translate that for them through that visualization. And then things like price transparent, all of those things I think are important. I do think if a builder were ever to come in with a return program, I do think that would help too. But I still am a big believer. That's why I trust Amazon so much. Is if I don't like it, I return it the next day, and I do. We also asked them to rank. So we said, okay, pick which is most important to you. Based on your experience with your customers, and that's that in-person access with a sales associate. You're a believer in that. I am too. I'm just going to tell you, let all these tools work for you. Fight for these tools to help you actually, again, put that smile on the customer because of all the online tools. electronic access at any time. I am telling you, the fastest part of our business right now is the U-Tour side of our business, because so many consumers want control. They not only want control online, they want to be able to see. Doesn't mean they don't need you, because they're going to call you before, during, and after that tour. But they just want to be able to go through and, peacefully do that. And then broker access and buying online, much lower priority for all of you. When we on the STAR program, back to that, online support to your community sales success, what's most important to you? For many of you, it's the online sales team, the 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. After hours opportunities. I would tell you the number one thing I hear from customers is, I just want flexibility. I work 8 to 5, so being able to come in flexible hours is important. The ability to see those specs important, and human access when I need it, but promptly. I should have put promptly on there. Really big deal. Other things that we asked all of you, which is, community success online, what's important to you? You felt text feature or the human, and then website with salespeople on it. I love the concept of having a human on that website. I think that's a really big deal, but it's really that instant access to you. I think that's so crucial. Sales office tools for your customers. What's important to you? Obviously, having a sales office neighborhood specific, for sure, that's important. But I would say number one, based on your customers, because it's where they start and spend most of their time, well-designed website, easy access to those specs. And I definitely think you have to have a great sales office with models and broker co-op. So I think we're in line there. I think the only difference is I'm going to push you guys to give more independence to your customer. Trust that that's a process. They're still going to really rely heavily on you. They just want some independence in that process. As we look at model and spec options, what can we do there to make you more successful? I think we're both in alignment. The customer, as well as your response, just slightly different order. And that's the spec for model access. I think we all agreed on that one. The second one for the customer is model tours in person, where you said broker access, where you've still got model tours. It was just number 3. So just a little bit of a flip there. So many people really would love to access those homes on their own. Just like the consumer, same as the builder, they really don't want to pay that extra broker fee either, for sure. But at the end of the day, there are some markets we realize are 80 to 90% broker co-op, and it's just going to happen. And those are usually the most transient markets, where you have a lot of consumers coming from other markets, and they're just not sure, and they really need that expert, quote, I think, legal advice. As we look for home access for your customers when buying a home, like what are they really looking for? Again, very similar from your response to what the customer said and where I think the opportunity is. And that really we both said physical model, we both said virtual model, we both said virtual fly through that community. And then the U-Tour access to specs and the U-Tour access to models. But the two that are the biggest and I think most important today that aren't done, that need to be done more often, is that fly through, showing that community done as we've talked about. And then, of course, the easy U-Tour through the access. We asked accessing the model, all the things that are important, whether it's website, broker, co-op, physical model, virtual model, what were the things that you ranked? So this way you had to stack what was most important to you. Physical model, number 1, and I don't disagree with that at all. Number 2 is a strong website. The only difference I would say is that's probably going to be right up there with your physical model. I might even rank those as being at the same importance. On-site sales office, and then broker co-op, and you can see where it goes from there. Whether you have a model or a virtual model, I would tell you that will impact your absorption. If any of you need that ammunition, to reach out to me. I can prove that to corporate if you're ever fighting for that. Hey, without a doubt, for sure. We also asked, what's important for a well-designed online experience? What do you need to be successful? And there were some slight differences here, but virtual home on every plan. Virtual home, or at least photographs of that home, how it's going to live inside. Human interaction in person, you have as 2. Human interaction, number 3. And then live pricing online by home, super important. The only thing I would tell you is don't forget they're starting online first. So it is virtual home or photographs, then live pricing online because they're trying to make their decisions on where to go. And then the human interaction, super key by phone and in person for sure. And then all the rest, I think we line up with ability to compare, electronic in-store access, easy online packages, and of course, human interaction online. But all 8 of those, super important, will help you sell more homes and to be more successful as a company. Online experience for your company. Where would you start? Would you start with map, go right into homes, or start with your brand and a regional map? Now, remember, the consumer told you that brand was important to them, but it was 7th on the list. It was at the bottom of the total bowl. We, as a group, you said 59% chose company brand and then picked the location. I would tell you every time I've done a lot of this research, they just want to get to that map and get to home choices. And at the very end, then they research your brand. They really want to understand they're buying from a great company. What do they stand for and all that stuff. So I think it's all very important and getting some sort of a shot of that. I'm not suggesting you downplay the brand, but I am suggesting, again, get that smile on their face by giving them what they want. Chatbot versus live counselor. This is your response back to this one. And 23% said chatbot versus live sales counselor. Now, I will tell you this. So many of you are doing chatbot versus live sales counselor. And I do think that if you had more live sales counselor as that chat piece, customers might learn to trust it more, but we're nowhere near there today. We also asked, as we looked at online sales counselors available versus real-time video chat, and you can see that actually 41% actually have online sales counselors. So it is interesting to me how many people really lean towards that online sales counselor versus the real-time video chat. Almost 60% of you said, oh, I don't know that I really want to go on video and be real-time chat there. Your sales contract process today, how's everybody doing it out there? So those are just kind of a good measure or benchmark to what everyone else is doing. Most are doing it in person, completely paperless. There is a portion of you, it's about 50-50, that have some paper, or only 15% are saying completely paperless and you can do the whole thing online. Markets like Florida, Texas, all of the transient markets, Arizona, I would tell you that online completely paperless really comes in handy for some of those contracts. It sure does help, and especially when you're doing even contracts overseas, I would imagine, right, Jeff? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of that happening too.
There's no question about it. And again, I think it falls back to what we were talking about earlier. Make it easy for people to give you money. I mean, there's not one way, but we actually have to do all ways, and not just for today, but even more so going forward.
Yeah, and just the more you make it easy, the more they're going to want to buy even another home from you too. I just think it's just the whole experience that should be great. Final closing, very similar. It's shocking to me that it's like almost 75% say that there's still some paper involved. But for the most part, we only have close to 8% that are completely paperless. And then there's that hybrid at about 18%. Top marketing leaders, what are they doing for you? Who are they? Well, the good news is over 50% say they're doing everything for you. And then there's another percentage that are really saying it's a mix, and they could choose more than one. So growth driver, number 2, chief storyteller, number 3, customer champion, number 4. The one thing that I would say to you is I always relate it to football. I don't know why, but I always do. Your CMO, or frankly, whatever role you have in marketing, I mean, you should be the person designing the plan book. You are the right-hand strategy person in all things, in my opinion, from acquisition, builder growth, where you should be going. The more information that we can qualify you with, that you can qualify yourself with, the more you can actually guide that company. But you are the chief strategy officer in any function you have if you're in a marketing role. And on that note, top marketing initiatives, your response, what you thought was important or very important. Nothing fell into the less or no important. That's important. But in order, it's website, physical sales office, customer research, customer experience, virtual sales experience, digital strategies. Sales training came in 7, not because it's not important, but because there's so much transitioning and changing in the world. I would tell you, in my opinion, sales training and customer research, maybe it's because Jeff and I are talking about this, but you really have to understand how the customer is changing, what they want, what's important to them. Biggest opportunity for me is first, know your customer. Second is give them the experience they want. And that includes website, virtual, customer, knowing how they think, what they believe in, that training experience. And then I can start to put in things like digital strategies. Then I can start to look at things like broker repositioning. And then I can design a really excellent physical model experience. So again, all fantastic strategies or initiatives that you should be thinking about. But definitely that customer has so much access at their fingertips. That's why it's so crucial. Top advertising tools, I'll let you take all this in. I won't read them all. But for the most part, what you're seeing that's really driving traffic is social media and email communications, then followed by things like resale listings. And as we looked at the customer, they're really heavily relying on some of those all-encompassing real estate listings. I do like social media for third-party, storytelling and things like that. The one that I would tell you that I think is really going to shift, and we're going to look at this when we ask you to star these, where your biggest opportunity is and where customer preference is shifting to, you have to look at this. So I broke this into above average, average, and below average. Again, you had email, social, real estate websites, and the SEO stuff in your top 4. I think your biggest opportunities, I hate to say this, but things like Google and all those search engines are really going to start shifting to ChatGPT. I can't tell you how many times people reference ChatGPT to me on a daily basis. My young Gen Zers, every age group is referencing ChatGPT, and that will completely supersede your SEO efforts. New home specific listings, huge. Geo-targeting, being able to do that, huge. Streaming, I cannot believe streaming is so low. It's so inexpensive to have TV advertisement. Look into that. It's a huge, huge opportunity. And then I would go into the traditional things, frankly, that you've nailed it. It is working for you. Real estate websites, social media, email communications, all that stuff, I think is great. And then again, I'd throw out chatbots. I told you I hate chatbots. Anyways, and by the way, chatbots are going to be great, but chatbots are built on the information they have to pull from. So it is like a chat GPT. The amount of information you have to put into your system to get it to work, that's the challenge. And we're really far away from that, especially because you're relying on your independent engines. When you have one central engine to work from, that's where those can become extremely powerful. When we look at top customer tracking today, the things you're using, again, I think this will change with ChatGPT and some of that, but today it's Google Analytics and customer surveys. I'm thrilled you guys are doing that. And also, all of you are on the front line, share that information the more you possibly can. There are all kinds of different things like AI features that you can now start to put into place. We're working on so much AI as it relates to livable and some of that stuff, to where it's shocking the stuff we can track today. It's amazing. It's exciting too. When we look at overall, how many people actually trust AI is helping you make better decisions. Last year, this number was pretty small. Today, it's still only 53% actually believe it's going to help you make better decisions. You're going to watch this number continue to change though, and this is going to go up. As we're wrapping up, NAR, how big is that impacting all of you? I know a lot of people asking this question on a regular basis. 61% of you think really no change whatsoever. Even more staggering is only 4% believe it's actually made significant change. And what is interesting as we look at sort of the next year, not a huge number that thinks there's going to be even big change next year. So that's kind of interesting. And who's managing the broker commission budget at the division level? Largely the division president. I will tell you, working with all these builders throughout the country, it's the division president, but they rely heavily on their VP of sales and marketing. So I think there's a team effort happening between those two. And then at the company level, it's the CEO asking for targets, but they're getting more feedback from the division president and VP of sales and marketing. So continue to work together and talk through really how that's working. I still think, just based on your feedback, based on NER and some of the changes I'm seeing out there, most of the builders are very much an advocate for these brokers and should be, because there are more people on the ground helping you to be successful out there. Again, as we look to what do we think the NAR impacts could be for the future, again, close to 50% saying no big changes. But probably the most significant thing on this slide is that 32% do believe it could impact and make lower commissions. So that'll be interesting. I like the idea of just fair rules, and I would say just established rules, I think are fair. And I think being fair both directions is huge. So those are big things to take away here. And then as we look at top real estate listing services that are actually working for you today, Zillow is still leading the pack with Realtor at number 2. I always like to look at our own rating here, and so many of you shared. I asked you guys to share what's working with New Home Source, what's working with Livable. A lot of you shared you didn't know enough information. Again, I'll be there. Karen Bonner is going to be there. We'd love to show you what that is, but it is a one-stop shop with a lot of great features today and a lot of features coming in the future. So please share with us what you want and say hello. Very last but not least, your forecast. This is my favorite, and I love getting this feedback from you. So thank you for taking this whole survey. And if you're still listening, thanks for still listening. Your market forecast, again, for the end of the year, you believe there's largely over a third believe there's another 2 to 5% left in the second half. And then another third that believes that it could be 0 to 2. Now, when we look to 25, 41% believe it's going to be a 2 to 5% for the entire year. So maybe slightly softer, slightly slower, but not negative. Only 13% of you said 0 to -5, and less than 1% actually said potentially -6 to -10. So that's a real positive, I think, looking into the end of this next year and into 25. I hope you guys learned a lot today. I'm so excited to spend time with you and Jeff and the team. And Jeff, I can't wait to learn from you once again with all these great experts. It's going to be so much fun. And I learn something every time I talk to you, every time I hear you, all the great books you've written. So appreciate all that you do and looking forward to next week.
Thank you, Molly. And I got to tell you, my mind is full here. My head is spinning with what you just shared. Really, really valuable stuff. And just want to encourage you all, if you're watching that, you were taking notes, now what are you going to do? That presentation was full of action items. So get started on that right away. Molly, always a pleasure. Thanks for bringing us your brilliance. Appreciate it so much.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Genuinely appreciate it.
Well, there you have it. I promised you it would be amazing, and I definitely think it was. I was fascinated when they were talking about home design is a significant factor in buying decisions and how quick response times are essential for sales success, and definitely that buyers want transparency in pricing and options. All things that we should all be considering. Well, thank you so much again for watching another episode of Builder 365. We'll see y'all next time.